Hello, hello, hello. Welcome to a Free Ball Friday.
Happy Friday, fellas.
What's up, guys? Glad you're here with us. Welcome to the Free Ball Friday on We Got Balls. Welcome to Christopher. Welcome to Michael Moody all the way down here. It's early Saturday morning, he says. We've got Millennium on the line. Glad you're here, buddy. Welcome, welcome, welcome. What's up, Richard? Hey, hey, hey. How are you? How are you? Glad everybody's here. Put your comments and questions in the chat. We've got an exciting episode today, and always smash that like button if you can to help us promote this content to YouTube. We got 28 guys online. We need to have some more likes already. Come on, there we go. Like it on up. Orson says, happy free ballers. And Gord Braun says, good morning. Good morning. I wonder where he is in the world to say good morning.
I think he's traveling.
Probably is. Artug too. I love that name. Artug too. Mr. Jacoby, what's up, guys?
What's he tugging on though?
That's a great question. Randy's here. Steve Masters is here. Hello, guys. What's up? Glad you guys are checking in on the chat, and smash that like button for us and help us promote this content to the world. Gord Braun says he's in Vancouver. So I love a guy that's out in the Canadian Rockies.
British Columbia.
So Tidy Whitey, Arizona. Howdy, howdy, howdy. What's up? Love that. And he's in his picture and in his image. He's got him in his Tidy Whiteys. I love that. So,
oh, wow. Okay.
And our buddy Warren, who we're going to see next week, showing up. We're going to see him at the Gulf Shores retreat, which is officially full. In fact, we probably got a little too full for this retreat. We're getting some extra guys in there, so we're excited to have them all for the retreat. So that sounds awesome.
Well, we're right across the street from the beach, so we can actually pack it out with guys just camping on the beach if you want to sleep on the beach.
I'm sure the cops will have no problems with that. So.
No.
So today, guys, as you've seen in the title, we're going to be talking about that wonderful part of the human body, the male body, especially the G-spot, the male G-spot, which is otherwise known as the
prostate.
And
let me just say, because I was giving the title to intern Kyle to promote the podcast, and he goes, what do you mean by G-spot? I thought it wasn't real. And I'm like, well, there's some debate around the female G-spot, but well, what's the male G-spot? He said, so it's not real. And I'm like, oh no, it's real.
Yes.
I had to give him a little tutorial on what the male G-spot is. He goes, ooh, never heard of that. So
a little bit of education today, a little bit of education day, a little bit of de-shaming or maybe reinforcing some narratives around the prostate that some guys have. We definitely want to move this into the conversation like we did Wednesday around the arousal template and what are the things that are exciting you. If this is a fantasy for you to be turned on by having prostate stimulation, what might that say about your arousal and your story, and where does that take you a little deeper into that process?
Yeah. So I don't know how this topic came up. I just guess it kind of in the zeitgeist in my mind.
Oh, it was requested by a listener at wegotballs00@gmail.com.
Oh, was it? Okay.
It was.
All right. So it's a fairly popular topic. And it's something that I have been interested in for a very long time. This actually goes back to the 90s is when I first started to realize, that area of my body is really pleasurable when that is stimulated. And so, yeah, and being curious about that and having some experiences with that myself, and then seeing how it's kind of emerged in popular culture. If you've ever read Cosmopolitan, they have articles on this all the time, or other women's magazines about how to blow your husband or partner's mind, the male G-spot and prostate orgasm. And there's been a lot of back and forth about, well, is this really real? But it's a real thing. So the prostate, just to give you a brief introduction, fellas, in case you don't know your anatomy very well, is Your prostate is a gland that is right below your bladder, and it wraps around your urethra right in the area where your urethra connects to your bladder, and it butts up against the root of the penis. So you probably also know this, but if you don't, I'm going to tell you that half of your penis is inside of your body. And
What?
so the external penis,
So okay, so what comes out is only half. So if I could just, you know, pull out that extra half, I'd have double the size of my. Why hasn't anybody invented that surgery? In
well,
fact,
if
I think
you have
they
an
have.
average sized penis, Chris, 5 inches erect, you could say I have a 10-inch penis because that's
It's just,
actually true.
it's just half of it's hidden.
It's just half of it's inside your body, but where the half of the penis is inside your body, at the beginning of the penis, or it's called the root, it butts up against the prostate, and so the prostate can be reached through two areas in your body to be stimulated. You can press up on your taint, which is your perineum, the area between your
Perineum.
testicles and your anus. So if you press up there when you're sexually, it doesn't feel very good to do it when you're not sexually aroused. It's kind of annoying. And if you've ever been to a doctor to get a prostate exam, the other way you know how to touch the prostate is they stick a finger in your rectum and they push it towards your belly button. And the prostate is about 2 inches or the first knuckle in, right past your inner anal sphincter. And it can be touched as you move towards the belly button, and it feels different than all the tissue around it. And when it's touched from the inside, you may feel like you have to urinate.
Mm.
Um, and so that's a like a very typical thing when you get a prostate exam. Which, by the way, fellas, if you're 45 or older, you should be getting an annual checkup on that area of your body. The prostate digital rectal exam is not the only way. Probably it's not the preferred method to check for prostate cancer now. They do a PSA test. And then if your PSA test has high scores, they're probably going to do a digital rectal exam. And they do that by lubing up a finger with a, glove on and sticking it inside of you towards your belly button and
Moon
pressing down.
River.
Yeah, baby.
using the whole hand there, Doc.
Fire in the hole. So yeah, if you feel hands on both of your shoulders, he's doing it the wrong way. So,
Ooh, yes, that's right. That's right.
or the right way, depending on where you're coming from. So,
Daniel
that's the
says
two.
men can be manually stimulated by a doctor or a good friend to relieve anxiety. So,
Well,
that's
okay, so
interesting
it is
perspective.
true. It is true that prostate massage, or it can also be called prostate milking, is used when there may be congestion in the prostate gland or there may be pain. And guys for years have gone to doctors to have their prostate massaged by a physician. There are even bodywork practitioners that do it. And in fact, here's a little trivia question for you, Chris. What was the band Steely Dan named after?
Ooh, that's a great question. I don't know. I'm trying to think of
It
how it would
is
relate.
Steely Dan is the slang term for a male steel dildo that was used to massage men's prostates. So
Okay.
that's where
Well, there
it's
you
kind
go.
of tongue in cheek. So there is a medical purpose for prostate massage, and then there's a sexual purpose for it too. So it can be good for your health and it can be good for sexual pleasure. And that's kind of the gist of it. So there's the anatomy lesson for today. And so Just Dude says he's not much into it. Some guys aren't. Some guys are. The statistics I saw said that 50% of men are interested in trying this or have tried it and or enjoy it. And there's probably some neurological training evidence that shows that you have neurons in your brain that kind of link up in new neural networks when they experience new experiences and you learn new behaviors. And so it may take some time of doing prostate play or prostate pleasure before it becomes really pleasurable. And then your brain kind of kicks in and goes, ooh, we like this. But it definitely, from an erotic standpoint, it's something that, well, if you go to a doctor and you get a digital rectal exam, let's just say it's not going to be exciting. And even if it does, which is another interesting fact, is a lot of guys don't know this, but it does trigger erections with a lot of guys when they get examined, which is a complete reflex. It's not something that the guy is responding to because he thinks it's fun, because it's generally not fun to have a finger in your rectum by a doctor. They're not, and they purposely are not gentle.
Yeah,
So
just a dude
they
says
don't trigger.
I'm a clincher, not fun for me. So
You got to, well, Justin, dude, you got to take a hot bath and relax. So
yeah, that's really hard to do when I'm in an exam room or drop trow and somebody's snapping a latex glove with some lube on it. That's a real turn on. That's a real what's the word I want to look at? Romantic situation for me. And like, oh, I can relax in this situation. That's
yeah,
nice.
yeah. I mean, you've got to be relaxed. If you're puckered up, it's not going to feel good at all, too. So,
Tim
and Tim
says
Parker said
triggers semen leakage for me. So yeah, there it
that
is. That's what
that is
happens.
true. I have dropped a load in a doctor's office because he pressed too hard, and whatever. It's normal. If you haven't ejaculated in a while before you get a prostate exam from a doctor, that's going to happen. It's completely normal. So, um, so how does this tie into sexual fantasy, Chris? Because we're not going to be a sexual health channel all the time. We're not experts in that. We can talk
No.
about it. It's an interesting subject to all of us, but we want to tie it back to desire and pursuing sexual pleasure and connection in a very life-giving and connecting way. So why are we talking about this?
Well, what can be more intimate than your bunghole? I mean, that's one of the most sacred parts of a man's anatomy, and to have someone, to trust someone, or to do that yourself, to stimulate yourself that way, seems like a very intimate act. I mean, we talked about anal sex in previous episodes and just how that is an intimate act as well. And so, again, we're not talking about analingus or rimming or anything on this conversation. That's for a different podcast. But I think there's something about trusting someone or seeking that deep pleasure. It seems like a very deep way to pleasure oneself to do a prostate massage.
Or to be pleasured by a partner, right?
Sure, same
So,
way, yeah.
and let's just be honest about the elephant in the room. If a man is getting pleasure through his anus, there is this stigma around that, like, well, that's not normal, or that's taboo, or I shouldn't be doing that if I'm not gay, or only
Oh,
gay men
wait,
would do that.
hold on. Time out, time out. What do you mean? Well, I shouldn't be doing that if I'm not gay. So you're saying that there is a stigma out there that playing with your butt is a gay thing only, that only gay guys play with their butts?
Oh, yes. I'm not
Oh.
saying that I believe that. I'm saying there is a stigma in masculine culture that if you're a man, you're not to be penetrated. Now,
Oh.
that's not new. That's been around for thousands of years, right? So, um, but
Because it makes you
so,
less than or weak or well, I'm just trying to understand. I mean, where is it in the male culture that again, we're not talking about anal sex. We're talking about stimulating your prostate. So there seems to be a little bit of a different conversation. This is massage, prostate massage, the male G spot. So if you're doing that with a dildo, if you're doing that with a penis, maybe that's what you're talking about. But we're talking about having somebody stimulate your prostate manually so that you can become aroused and maybe even have an orgasm.
yeah, but I wouldn't preclude the use of sex toys either. And obviously, if you're gay and you're into anal sex, it's going to be done probably with a penis, or it could be done with sex toys, or it could be done with a finger. So it would work either way for straight or gay couples, with the exclusion of the penis for um, straight couples, in which case the wife would put on a strap on. And we've done an episode on strap ons. So those are the range of options that you have, right?
I love your memory because we haven't, but
I thought we did. I
no,
could swear we did.
no, man, you must be having these episodes in your dreams.
Oh, that was one of the dream episodes. I fantasize about doing an episode on strap on. So anyway, well, okay, then there it is. You have three possible ways to go in through the rectum to
Yep,
stimulate the prostate,
yep.
and or going through the anus to stimulate the prostate. And I think if everybody's honest about it, like there is this stigma in masculine culture that that's gay. And I want to, part of the reason I wanted to bring this up is it's not gay to enjoy pleasure.
No.
It's not straight to enjoy pleasure. Maybe it's just masculine to enjoy pleasure. And our bodies are a wonderland and a playground that when you have a healthy relationship with another person, there ought to be a sense of play and exploration and goodness about pursuing what feels good. And so, back to the analogy of our autonomic nervous system and how it relates to sexuality, if you can understand that in terms of our sexual arousal structure in our bodies, neurobiologically, we have an accelerator, the accelerator that turn me on and get me aroused and get me excited sexually. And the things that shut me down are the brake. And there is a degree of balance that's required in sexuality between these two facets of our autonomic nervous system, the sympathetic nervous system, which is where we get ramped up and it's the accelerator, and the parasympathetic part of the nervous system, which is where we rest and we calm down and we can even go into shutdown. So in order to let somebody touch you sexually, Chris, you have to be somewhat parasympathetically aroused. In other words, your parasympathetic nervous system has to be activated to let somebody touch your body. Otherwise, if you tensed up all the time, you wouldn't be able to get an erection, right? So sexual arousal starts with touch
Yes.
and caress and kiss. And these are parts of that parasympathetic system where we get nurture and touch and care. Then it goes into sympathetic arousal, and it's interesting that both male and female sexual arousal involve both parts of the nervous system, where generally we're in either one part or the other. We're not having both parts activated at the same time. And sexual arousal is one of those things where both parts have to be activated to have an enjoyable, life-giving sexual experience. So shame is part of the brake system.
Mm.
So if you shame about a sexual activity, you're going to have a hard time getting aroused and enjoying it if you feel shame about that activity. And so, if you want to have a vivacious, exciting sex life, you have to have novelty. You have to try new things. You have to do new things. And that's why this subject is interesting, because the prostate is a tremendous source of male pleasure. And if you're in a relationship with somebody, you ought to be able to have the ability to at least explore that in conversation with your partner and invite a greater degree of novelty and play and exploration into your sexual experience. And when you don't feel like you can do that, you're not really allowed to be your authentic self in your sexuality.
So
And
we got a
that's what I think
question.
this
A
is
question
really
in the
about.
chat. How do I bring this up with the wife? Richard Simpson asked that question. That is what you want to stick around to the end of the conversation to hear, because we are going to talk about how you can discuss your sexual fantasies with your partner and be able to address those particular issues with him or her. Steve said,
And let
I
me
brought
just
this up with my wife because I thought it was worth asking. Why shouldn't I be entitled to pleasure outside of heteronormative norms? I mean, it's a great question.
Well, but see, and that heteronormative norm is what I'm getting at, and why I wanted to cover this topic, because why is it outside of a heterosexual norm to enjoy pleasure? Why? And just because the pleasure is coming from a part of your body that in some cases you have to go through the anus to reach, but you don't have to. As I said, you can press up on the perineum. Am I pronouncing it correct now? Okay.
Perineum.
Perineum. So you can get there by pressing up on that area of your body. I know where it is. I know what it feels like, but I don't know how to say it.
It's the taint, Scott. It's just the taint. Just call
That
it a taint.
or the gooch. So it's easy. So you can get at it that way, but it's, to me, it's not nearly as pleasurable as going in through the back door, so to speak. But why is that not heteronormative? Because I can tell you from the research, about half of guys that identify as heterosexual enjoy this.
Mm-hmm.
So it is heteronormative. When you have at least 50% of a population doing something, it's pretty normative. But to Steve's point, then she calls it my gay zone. And so, if your wife maybe knows your sexual history or what you've done on the computer, and maybe she's seen gay porn or whatever, then it might be a real source of shame in the conversation about that because, well, I see, I told you were gay. And that's where the problem comes in because if you have to start submerging parts of your authentic self in a relationship just to stay connected, it's doing something to the relationship and you.
Yes.
And that's why we're inviting a conversation about this. That's why we're engaging in the conversation about this. Because in order to have life in a relationship, you have to share desire with your partner.
Mm.
You have to. Otherwise, your only alternative is to become secretive about it and find people online or in person that you can share desire with. And
Or to do it
that,
on your own
or,
and try to hide it from your
or do it
partner.
on your own.
Yeah.
But hiding and secrecy will be the name of the game. And let me tell you, fellas, that is not the way to live a flourishing life because it will create stress in your relationships and within your own body. And it's
Mm-hmm.
going to wear and tear you down. You cannot hide authentic parts of yourself, particularly your sexual self, and not generate high levels of cortisol and adrenaline. And over time, that those neural hormones and chemicals take a wear and tear on your body and your mental health. So I'm all for sexual pleasure. I'm not for hiding sexual pleasure because of what it does to you and the relationships overall. And this is an area that it's worth engaging with a partner um, because of the good and the beauty that can come out of it in the long run. It may be very unpleasant in the beginning, and it probably will be, especially if things have been done between you and your spouse that are really hurtful. You've hurt each other. There's a lack of safety in the relationship. There's a lack of trust. Because look, Chris, I can't have a conversation with my wife that I want to have her stick a finger up my butt unless I feel safe with her,
Absolutely.
right?
As a massive amount of trust that's required there to even begin that conversation. And I think
Because
Steve makes a good point. Doing this on your own is not the same psychologically. That's a whole nother episode. Is solo sex the same as partnered sex? I mean, we could talk about that at length because there's a lot of differences there in solo sexual practices that you don't really get with a partnered experience.
well, you're not getting any bonding.
Yeah.
You're getting a way less degree of oxytocin. You're getting basically dopamine without the bonding and the oxytocin, and probably if you're doing this behavior with that secrecy involved, you're also creating a lot of stress around the experience, and that's creating the cortisol, which is going to create a dopamine, not just the cortisol, but the high level of stimulation that this does when you're secret, because it's risky if I'm discovered, or if my wife found out, she would be mad at me and think I'm gay or whatever. It's going to create a big spike in dopamine because it creates a supernormal stimulus, and that big spike creates a big drop. So it's going to create a seesaw for you in terms of dopamine, which is a motivational chemical, right?
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
a euphoric sense. So it creates an addictive pattern, not that you're trying to be addictive, but the hiding, the secrecy creates that compulsive nature in the behavior as well. So that's why it's worth having the conversation about this in the long run to bring a greater degree of pleasure and joy into your relationship. So, um,
Warren asks, is the aversion more American than elsewhere? I don't know. I mean, probably in your more sexually liberated Western European countries, there's probably not as much of an aversion to this. But I think you're still dealing with a very personal part of your body that, people don't talk about butt stuff. I mean, they just don't. They just don't. That's not a common topic to put it out there. That's why it's called butt stuff, because nobody even wants to say prostate massage or analingus, or they want to have these slang terms for it because there is a we're talking about where your body disposes of its waste. Now there's pleasure there, but there's also a lot of dirt there. And so there's a bunch of different pieces to that to consider. So
Well, right. There are hygiene issues, and just to say, like, poop comes out of your butt, and so
yeah,
where poop is, there's bacteria. So
yeah,
this is something that you want to do. If you want to engage in this, you need to have proper hygiene, preparation, and
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 clean up.
clean up. And then there's a way to go about it that's productive and healthy, and there's a way that you can actually injure your prostate if you do this too vigorously or it's too intense, and you don't want to do that either. So, but let's just talk about the conversation of sexual desire.
Mm-hmm.
A healthy relationship, one that's flourishing, allows both partners to express desire without making a demand on the other partner.
Yes.
And where in your life were you ever trained to do that?
Ooh, never, bro. Never.
Oh, no, you were trained.
Oh,
You
you
were
mean
trained
trained to
in your
not do that,
family.
trained to not express the healthy desire.
That's
That's what, yeah.
right.
Yeah. I heard the
Most
question
of
is
us,
where were you trained to express healthy desire? And that would be never. For me, it was like I was trained to be very quiet about all sexual things because sex is bad. And then it'll just, you flip a switch and one day you'll be married and it'll all be good. But even in the context of having sex in a marriage, talking about sexual desire and positions and turn ons and things that you really like, I mean, to Tidy Whitey Arizona's point, it says, but this is a way for you to see if you even like the sensation. You know, you kind of have to know first, do I like my prostate being massaged? And I've got to do that on my own in some way before I could even bring that to my partner to go, I want to try this. Right.
yeah, yeah. And so I think most of us as boys going into adolescence, discovering masturbation, have tried kind of putting our finger in our anus and touching that. It feels good. We have, by the way, just from a neurobiological standpoint, there are a whole set of nerves that innervate both our genitals and our anus, rectum, and prostate, and they all work together. It's called perigenital area of your body. So you probably notice when you ejaculate that your anus pulsates as well
Mm-hmm.
to help expel semen. So the anus is pleasurable to be touched. It's intended to be pleasurable to be touched, and it's very sensitive to touch because we need to know, when we're going to the bathroom and expelling waste, whether we've done that properly or not. But it's pleasurable, and the prostate is pleasurable because it's connected to the penis and the internal anatomy and so on. But so a lot of us may have experimented with, putting a finger up there, but object up our butts as kids, masturbating, but we probably didn't even know we had a prostate. I didn't know I had a
Mm-hmm.
prostate. I was much older, or what it did. I guess I thought semen came mainly from my testicles, and so we don't get a lot of proper anatomical biological anatomy training
Anatomical
on.
education. Yes.
Yeah, that's what I was
Yeah.
looking for. Thank
Yeah.
you.
You
When
are.
we're getting our sexual education, nobody goes, "Hey, by the way, the prostate's really pleasurable." So you kind of figure it out on your own, or not, or maybe your partner introduces it to you. There are a lot of women that actually enjoy doing this for their husbands.
Mm-hmm.
And so, but if you never have a conversation about that, maybe she's afraid to go there because she doesn't want to provoke a reaction out of you, like, "Hey, what are you doing? That's a one way out only," you know,
Yeah.
or
It's
but
got an
it's
exit
something that
only
she's had.
tattoo on that. So we're not going to touch that.
Yes. Um, or she's very repressed sexually, and even though it's something she may consider doing or has been interested in exploring, she's too afraid to go there because of her own story and own upbringing. So, yeah, so how do you engage desire in a healthy way? And for my relationship with my wife, we've just always talked about sex freely. Before we got married, we talked about what we wanted to do sexually. I was probably more sexually repressed than she was. She has never had sexual shame. She she's very modest, but in the bedroom or when we're talking about our sex lives, she loves to engage in the conversation, and she's very open and curious and kind, and she's got an active fantasy life about what she wanted to do. And one of the best things we ever did was we were on a car trip together, and I just said, hey, what if we made a list of our top 10 sexual fantasies that we'd love to do with each other or to each other or whatever, or have done to us, and we shared it. And the rule is we don't criticize. We just say, oh, that sounds really fun. Yeah, I'll do that anytime. Or that sounds really fun. I'll do that when I initiate. Or that sounds really fun, but I'm not sure I'm ready to go there right now. And that's the only answer that's allowed to
Not into
every
that.
time we,
Yeah.
huh?
Yeah.
No,
Yeah.
we
Not
don't.
into
You're
that,
not
but
going to say
thank
I'm
you.
not into that. You can say I'm not ready to go there right now.
Okay. Fair enough.
And so we did that. And lo and behold, out of the 10 items, I think my wife and I shared 8 on our list.
Wow.
We had the same
Interesting.
items. And so then that became a fun activity schedule for stuff that we'd never done before that we both want to do. And that's what really opened up the conversation for us about sexual desire and sexual pleasure. So uh, that's kind of a good framework for starting. But I go back to the core element here, which is you have to have emotional safety in the relationship to have a conversation about what you most desire to be done with your body or what you'd
Mm,
like to do with another person's body. Because if you don't feel emotionally safe, you won't feel safe having somebody put their finger in your anus
mm-hmm.
or allowing you to do that to them. So it starts with cultivating emotional safety. And I like to say this is what emotionally safe people do. Chris, every part of you is welcome with me. Now that doesn't mean I have to agree to do everything that every part of you wants to do with me.
Right.
But your desire is welcome, and I'm never going to shame you. I want to hear it. Like, what brings you to life? Because when we're talking about arousal, let's just put it in a broad category of arousal is about what makes me come alive.
Yes.
And if I
In
can't
life
share
in
that,
general, and particularly sexually. I think we kind of get those two ideas mixed up as we think it's only about sexual arousal, when our sexual arousal points us to a greater, um, what's the word I want to use? Existential reality of our arousal. What does it make? What? How do I feel alive in life itself?
yes, and I would say in couples where there is an open and accepting and compassionate and curious conversation about what makes me come alive in general, they probably have better sexual what makes me come alive conversations. Because when you can share with your spouse openly and they can share, or your partner openly, what makes you feel alive and they can share what makes them feel alive, that's creating kind of the runway to then have the sexual conversation. But if you guys are basically roommates that never have these kind of meaningful conversations and you're two ships that pass in the night in terms of what your desire is, it's going to be really hard to bring this conversation up.
So, why do
In
you think,
any,
as Michael says, guys are too scared to ask? Why do you think guys are too scared to ask? Too scared to share? Too scared to go there?
I think they fear that their partners are going to think they're gross or
Mm.
perverted. Like, what's wrong with you?
And I think it's because of a lack of experience of being vulnerable in general. Is that, I don't really have a dynamic in my life where I can be true about my innermost feelings and share those with other people and that be accepted and received. All of you is welcome has not been a place that I've experienced in my life. And so I don't have that gear to go to be able to share that. I'm supposed to show up and please everybody and take care of everybody instead of being mutual and being pleased by some people sometimes as I ask them to help me, and also to pleasure others and bring them into a place of experiencing a deeper joy in life. And so it's kind of like a neutral gear that guys don't seem to have. Michael's reason is conditioning and story. Say more about that, Michael. I'm curious. And Tony says too
Well,
much shame associated with it. So
well, I was going to say, why are guys too scared to ask? Because they were raised in an environment where there was never an openness to desire and
right,
conversations about desire. It
right.
was all about very either rigid sexual conversations, or I had one awkward conversation with my dad, and that was it. And that is so typical. It's unfortunately broadly typical. Like most parents never had healthy conversations with their children about desire, about sexuality, about sexual development. And so there is that is my story. I don't
Mm-hmm.
know how to talk about desire because it was never modeled for me. And I just married somebody else who's just like that, right? So
Mm-hmm.
um and I'm just reenacting what I was programmed to do in my family. And so it takes, you're going to have a very different experience with some other human beings before you develop kind of the social courage to be able to have these kinds of conversations with an intimate partner. And
Yeah,
that's what I hope we're doing for guys is we're getting on here talking about prostate massage or prostate pleasure and normalizing the conversation um, in something that could be a very fun and healthy experience between two people who love each other. But yet, if that fear and that shame are in the room every time you go to talk about sexuality, you're never going to be able to have this conversation.
very true. Hey, Scott, raise your
So,
hand in the room if you've experimented with prostate massage.
can you see my hand?
No, you got to put your hand by your face. There you go. So you got 2 for 2 on this. So raise your hand up in the chat if you've experimented with prostate massage. Smash the like button because we want to normalize this as something to say. Listen, this is a part of our bodies that we need to be curious about, and we need to give space to share. Tidy Whitey says it's viewed as emasculating. It takes more of a man to take something up than it does to avoid the potential pleasure. I mean, that's true. We want to talk about this stuff not because we're better men, but because we've experienced the freedom of being able to have these conversations. Even if you don't choose to participate in that, you tried it once and said, "Listen, it's mine." So
And
we
it
got a
may
bunch of
not be
guys
your,
sticking their hands up. Steve says, "Hand pink waving."
or sticking their finger up, so to speak. Um,
Yes, yes.
Well, look, it's something that I have experienced, and not only experienced, but I enjoy it a lot. And I've experienced what a prostate orgasm feels like. We haven't really talked about this much in this episode, but there is a distinct difference between a prostate orgasm and a penile orgasm.
Mm-hmm.
And and once you experience a prostate orgasm, you want to keep experiencing those because it's a full body experience that is incredibly euphoric. And in the research that we did for this, there's a lot of neurochemicals that are released in a prostate orgasm that aren't released just in a penile orgasm. Because when you orgasm in a standard way through your penis, it's kind of once and done, and then your refractory period is going to hit. With a prostate orgasm, you don't even have to be erect to have the orgasm, and it can go on a long time. And so if you enjoy foreplay in your relationship with your partner, which I do, foreplay is to me the best part of sex is the build up and the length of time that you're
The
investing in.
holding the tension, the
Yeah, I
tantric
mean,
aspect of it. Yeah.
it's the fun of just building up to it. It makes the orgasm so much better when you do that too. And so this can be a great part of foreplay that doesn't take you over the edge to ejaculating, but allows your partner to spend a lot of time on you, and then you can return the favor on them doing the things that they like to do, and so on and so forth. So the arousal stays at a high level and doesn't just dissipate after the like it does with a penile orgasm. So that's
So
to me the real benefit from a pleasure standpoint.
so
And and
there's a peengasm and there's a progasm. Well, that's like we call that the difference. The peengasm is not nearly as good as the progasm.
yeah, so that's good. Um, and um, it's a very intimate experience, right? Because you're being very vulnerable as a man. If you're if you're getting that, you're being penetrated, which again is kind of that reversal. So I'll say there's a male normative role for
Yeah.
sex, and that is that I'm supposed to be the penetrator. I'm not supposed to
Yeah.
be penetrated.
Penetrator. And that's why some guys said, if, especially in the gay world, if you don't like being penetrated, you're a top. So, I mean, maybe not. Some people switch. So I think there's different evolving social norms around that. Phoenician in the
Yeah.
house. Haven't seen Phoenician for a while. Says during male
Phoenician
puberty.
seems like a researcher because he's telling us what the.
Yeah. So genital self-stimulation represented a normative phase of psychosexual development. That must have been a Chat GPT answer right there. Prostatic stimulation, by contrast, is a rare exploratory behavior and is not characteristic.
Well, okay, I'm going to call bullshit on that statistic,
Yeah.
and here's why.
I agree.
Because that is self-reported data, and most guys are not going to admit, "Oh yeah, I like to stick things on my butt." So that's not going to happen.
Because that's not manly to stick things up your butt, and so that's I'm not going to talk about this.
So that's why I don't trust the data on this. I trust kind of the zeitgeist more than the data, because there's more articles in the women's magazines. If you look at men's magazines, they talk about prostate massage. Men's Health promotes an Eros, which is a prostate massager, all the time in articles. So,
Phoenician, we're not bullying you. We're just having a conversation. We're sorry if it felt like bullying.
We're not bullying you. My bullshit was not at what you were posting. It's what on ChatGPT is saying, and the reason why. But Phoenician, you agree with me, don't you? Like, if this is self-reported data, most men are not going to say, "Oh yes, I like to stimulate my prostate through my anus." So I think that's the problem, is we're asking people to admit to something that they feel there's a stigma around, and that's what we're trying to do here. Let's unstigmatize this. So sorry, Phoenician. I didn't mean to come across as
we weren't trying to come at you, buddy. We're glad you're here. Glad you're here. All of you is welcome here, as Scott said earlier. All of you is welcome. So
we can also teach.
He says, he agrees with it, but he never enjoyed it, and that's fine. Nobody has to. But only 50% of the people really say they enjoy prostate stimulation. Was the data that you came up with, right?
Yeah, and I'm saying one of the reasons for that is it may take some brain training for your brain to start to associate sexual pleasure in internal organs and internal sensations versus externally, because men are very focused on their penis. I mean, that's how we train, right? We train to be focused on our penis. So there may be some training required for this to actually become more pleasurable than it would be without the training for a lot of guys. That was my personal experience. Like, I was curious about it because I had done some things with my wife that felt really good, but it took me some actual time to develop to where I could be more aware of the sensations in my body, because I'm not used to focusing on my prostate, honestly. So
Scott, we didn't even recognize it, but you know what? We got 69 guys online. Got a good episode today. All the guys coming in talking about their prostate, wanting to be curious about that male G-spot. So glad that that's here. So
funny. All right. So guys, any questions on this that you want to round out the conversation on? I'm just looking over the research that we did. There are some real good health benefits to this, but again, you're not going to sell that to a spouse or a partner on health benefits.
That's exactly right. You got to be vulnerable and say, "I like this.
I need you to do this, or I'm going to die of prostate cancer." That's probably not going to work really well.
Not a true statement. So,
yeah, there are some myths around this. And this
what are the health benefits? Tidy Whitey asks.
Okay, so the health benefits are genital blood flow. So it does increase blood flow to your genital area. It also can kind of stimulate the secretion of prostate fluid so that your prostate isn't congested, so to speak. One of the big health benefits is the relaxation that it creates in your body, because it releases endorphins, which a penile ejaculation does at the end of the process, but you can do prostate stimulation for much longer. It supports sexual function. We talked about it. Enhances urinary function. So if you have benign prostate hyperplasia, BHP, prostate massage can be very effective in maybe reducing some of that inflammation that's in your prostate. And so it's helpful for that. Stress relief, emotional wellness. I think I said that. And then the protective effects, which is some studies have found that frequent ejaculation achieved through ejaculation or prostate stimulation can be linked to a lower risk of prostate cancer, which we've talked about.
We have talked
in the
about
past.
that. RMC says, I would never have thought I would have enjoyed ass play until it happened. If you had someone who's caring and mindful and excited to teach you, it's definitely engage your thoughts on the subject. So, I mean, that's
Wonderful.
part of it, is when you have a willing partner who can help you process through that and find you some support. I mean, really, it's about support and connection in any kind of sexual pleasure. If you feel shame, if you feel like you're not good enough, there's something wrong with you, you'll get a short-circuited high, but it won't be a lasting high, because you need mutuality in your sexual pleasure and consent in your sexual pleasure for it to really be truly arousing.
Yes, and basically from a neurochemical standpoint, that's oxytocin, right?
Yes.
That's mediating that. So when you have an enjoyable partnered sexual experience, there is this bondedness that emerges, and that bondedness comes from the oxytocin, which is very calming to our bodies, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because again, we're social creatures. We're created to flourish in connection with one another. So when we do things in a very disconnected way, we may get pleasure, but we're not getting the other benefits that were intended to be delivered to us by the experience. And we're all for maximizing your experience and your pleasure and your joy in connection with other human beings, not minimizing that. So that's what we're for. We're pro sex, but we're pro sex in a way that's very connective and flourishing for you and the other party.
Well said. Well said. So if you want to connect with us, guys, you can always do that at wegotballspod.com. We want to make sure that you stay. We're going to be coming out with our 2026 calendar in the next few weeks, so be checking into the website there to see those dates, and we'll share that with you. We've got one episode for the podcast next week, because a week from today, where are we going to be, Scott?
We're going to be at Gulf Shores, and we'll be knee deep in awesome stories of pain and awe from men's lives. So.
Yes. Great connection.
I can't wait.
Great brotherhood, great masculine energy. It's going to be great there. So you want to join us at those events, go to wegotballspod.com. You can shoot us an email at wegotballs00@gmail.com to recommend more episodes like this, because this is a listener encouraged episode. So we thank you for that. I think it was Steve Croy was the guy who said, yes, Scott Croy was the guy who recommended this. So thank you so much for recommending this, Scott. If you're listening to this episode, thumbs up to you. And we look forward to more conversations just like this, encouraging you and building masculine connection right here on We Got Balls.
And you do too. Have a good weekend, fellas. We'll see you Wednesday.
Take care.